The Salt Road North. England year 970. Ethelred sat on throne. Land was not his, not truly not yet. He was but boy. 14 winters behind him. Advisers ruled in shadows, whispered behind closed doors. Wulfric knew all this. Wulfric knew many things. He was salt merchant, traveling north from Lincoln. Cart loaded white gold, salt from eastern marshes, worth more than silver, worth more than promises. He had walked road, 20 years without trouble. This year felt different. Wind came from wrong direction, birds flew south, too early too fast, as though something followed. Behind the grey clouds, his boy Edgar walked, beside the old cart, 12 years and thin, thin as river reeds, thin as winter prayers, but eyes sharp always, watching road, watching trees, watching everything. Wulfric missed. Father, someone follows us, Edgar said, not turning. I know, Wulfric said. How long? 3 miles, perhaps 4 at most. They move when we move, stop when we stop, deliberate and patient. Patient men are dangerous, more than hungry ones. Hungry men act fast, patient men think first. Road narrowed between oaks, ancient trees whose roots cracked the frozen ground, lifted it like hands, rising up from below. Wulfric slowed the cart. His horse felt it. Animal breathed differently then, shook its head short. Quick movements of fear. Fear travels through reins, from man to beast, or perhaps other way. Perhaps horse always knew, and told the man. Through leather and sweat, there was a village, half-mile further north, called Ashby by locals, though its proper name was something older still, carved in a tongue that even priests forgot. Wulfric had stopped there, before, twice or thrice, bought bread there once, sold a sack salt, to the headman there, broad man called Orm, with hands like shovels, and laugh like Millstone. Orm would remember him. Orm remembered everyone always. That was how headman survived long enough. Then they reached Ashby noon. Village was 12 houses, 1 hall, 1 well, 1 oak tree planted, so long ago that no one remembered planting it, just always been there, like sky cold, like hunger, like dark. Orm came out immediately, as though he waited, as though someone told him Wulfric was coming, which perhaps they had. Villagers had their ways of knowing things early. Wulfric, the broad man, said with genuine warmth, you were late this year. I was worried. Marshes froze hard this, Wulfric said, took longer to cut and dry. Orm nodded, understood this. Salt was life here. Without it meat rotted, fish spoiled before winter. Ended village without salt, was village without future. Plain as that then. Come eat, Orm said. Your boy looks hungry. Edgar looked at headman, with the careful eyes of child who learned. Adults not always what they seem, but took bread when it offered, because hunger is honest, even when people not. Inside the hall fire burned in the center, smoke rising through hole in the thatch above. Women worked at edges of firelight. Men sat, drinking, talking quietly way. Men talk when nothing urgent to say, but need sound of voices to feel safe enough. Wulfric sat beside Orm, told him about followers on road. Orm did not look surprised, which itself was information kind. You know who they are, Wulfric said quietly. Orm looked at fire, long moment, then said, there is a man called Sweyn, not Danish, despite the name, born here in Nottinghamshire farms, badly, drinks very well, lost his land last winter to a lord from south who had paper and seal and men with sharp swords. Sweyn has been taking from travellers since spring, salt, wool, cloth, anything he can sell or use. He has 4 men with him, all similar stories, all same. Anger. Wulfric thought about this anger. He understood. He had been angry himself once long ago, before Edgar was born, before road became home, and home became something remembered, not inhabited. Then, has he hurt anyone? Wulfric asked one merchant. Orm said, from Derby, beaten badly, lost everything. Man reached Lincoln alive, but only barely so. What do I do? Orm looked at him. Patient expression of man who solved many problems by waiting for others to solve them themselves. You have something he wants, Orm said. Give him something he does not expect. That all advice I have now. It was not much, Wulfric thought, but honest, which was more than most advice. He thanked Orm, ate the bread, drank the ale, thin and sour but warm. Let Edgar sleep 1 hour beside the fire. Boy needed it more than he knew then. They left Ashby mid-afternoon, light already failing. This far north in October, sky went grey by 3 and black by 5, and there was nothing between you and dark except what you carried deep inside. Sweyn came out trees, half-mile north Ashby, exactly where Wulfric expected. 4 men as Orm said, all on foot, which told Wulfric something. Men on foot who, robbed travelers, have not been successful long enough to buy horses yet, or have been successful, but spent everything already. Either way, useful knowledge. Sweyn was perhaps 40, lean and weathered face, that had been handsome once before years, and loss worked it over into something harder, something that forgotten how rest. He carried a staff, not sword, which was also useful information. Staff meant he did not want to kill, just frighten, or perhaps he had no sword then. Stand, he said to Wulfric, flat voice, man, practicing authority he does not quite believe has. Wulfric stopped the cart. Edgar sat very still beside him, way he always went still when afraid, not trembling, not crying, just absolutely still, like deer that hopes. Stillness equals invisibility, which sometimes it does not. What do you carry? Sweyn asked, looking. Cart. Salt, Wulfric said simply. Sweyn looked at him, then at cart, then back at him again. Salt is worth something. Sweyn said. Yes, Wulfric agreed, it worth great deal to right person, in right place, but you are not right person, and this not right place. Sweyn stared. Something flickered in eyes, not quite anger, not quite curiosity, lived between them in uncomfortable place. Explain yourself, Sweyn said. Wulfric climbed down cart, slowly and carefully. Way you move around animals that might bolt, bite, without wanting to. Stood in road before Sweyn. I carry 12 sacks. Salt, he said. Destination village called Thornby, 3 miles north, where headman already paid me half price in advance. Waits rest on delivery. If I do not arrive, he sends to Lincoln, and Lincoln sends men who are not ferrymen or salt merchants or tired old travelers, but something considerably less pleasant and considerably more numerous. Sweyn said nothing then. Wulfric continued. I have been on this road 20 years. I know every headman, every village, every man who matters, from Lincoln to York. I know who owes what to whom. I know which lords are watching which roads. Why, if I disappear on this particular road in this particular season, questions will be asked in places where questions have consequences. You understand me? Sweyn stared at him. Long time. 4 men behind him shifted weight slightly, way men do when situation not developing as they imagined it. You are one man, Sweyn said. Old one. Yes, Wulfric agreed entirely. I am old, and I am one man, and I have been on this road since before you lost land, since before whatever happened to you happened then. I am still on it, you understand that? I am still here. Sweyn looked at cart, looked at Edgar, who sat motionless watching everything with sharp, careful eyes, then looked back. Wulfric. Something shifted in face, not softening exactly, more like man who held position, realizes ground beneath, less solid than thought. What is in small box? Sweyn said, nodding at wooden box tucked beside Edgar feet. Then Wulfric glanced at it. My wife, he said. Sweyn blinked. Pardon me, my wife, Wulfric repeated. She died 4 years ago in Lincoln fever. Took her in 3 days. I carry her ashes north to her village where she born. She always said she wanted to go home. I am taking her home. It taking longer than I expected. Then silence fell on road, complete silence of kind that sometimes happens autumn, when wind drops and birds stop and world seems to hold breath between one moment next. One of Sweyn men coughed quietly. Someone else shifted feet on cold ground. Sweyn looked at box for long moment, then looked away. Trees, at sky, at anything that was not box or old man standing in road before him. Go, he said quietly. Go on then. Wulfric did not move immediately. He looked at Sweyn, way his father taught him look at men when needed, understand them properly, not at eyes which lie but hands which always tell truth. Sweyn hands on staff were loosening slowly, grip going out of them like water draining away. What happened to your land? Wulfric asked. Orm told me something, but Orm tells things sideways. I prefer direct. What happened? Sweyn looked him with expression that expected question to be trap, found it was not, and did not know what do with that. Lord from Winchester, Sweyn said eventually. He had grant from the king. My family worked land 3 generations, 40 years. My father built house on it. We had rights. We thought we had rights. Turns out Rights are only what someone with sword says. There Wulfric nodded. He had heard this story before, not this story exactly, but its shape, its weight, way. It sat on man shoulders. I know man, Wulfric said in Lincoln. Name of Aldhelm, he is clerk to shire. Reeve, he reads law, which most people cannot, and finds what can be found in it. I cannot promise anything, because Aldhelm is clerk, not miracle worker, but I can tell him your name and what happened if you want. That is all I can do, but will do it. Sweyn looked at him very long time. October light falling around them, both turning everything same shade grey, that England turns autumn, when summer is definitively over and winter has not yet committed itself fully to arriving, just sent ahead its cold ambassadors. Why, Sweyn asked, finally, why would you do that for me? Wulfric thought about this properly, not quickly, because quick answers to honest questions usually wrong answers, because I have been on this road 20 years, he said. Road requires things of you, requires that you pay attention to what you find on it, not just ruts and weather, but people and what they carry and why they carry it. You are carrying something heavy. I can see it. I cannot take it from you, but perhaps I can make it slightly less heavy for small cost to myself. That seems like reasonable exchange for safe passage, would you not say? Ghost of something crossed Sweyn faced something that had been buried under seasons of anger, loss, and cold nights planning, small violences that never gave back what taken, almost a smile, not quite but almost direction, of one at least. He stepped aside, road without word. 4 men moved with him like shadow moves. Wulfric climbed back onto cart, took up reins. Edgar still sitting perfectly still, watching everything, said nothing until they were 100 yards past the tree line, then said quietly, is there really man called Aldhelm in Lincoln? Wulfric smiled at road ahead. Yes, he said, there really is. And will you tell him about Sweyn? I do not know yet, Wulfric said. I will think about it tonight and decide by morning. That is how I make most decisions. Wait until morning. Things look different in daylight always. Edgar thought about this for a while, then said the box father. Yes, Wulfric said. Is mother really in it? Edgar asked. Wulfric was quiet very long moment, long enough that Edgar thought perhaps he asked wrong question or asked right question badly. Then Wulfric said, your mother is buried in Lincoln. You know that you were there, you held my hand. Edgar said nothing. Waited, then yes, Wulfric said, box has river stones in it, from Lincoln River stones, from place where your mother and I first met before you were born. Before any of this was this, she would have liked that. I think she always liked the river. Then Edgar sat with that for a while. Cart moved north, road went on ahead of them, pale and cold, long as it always was and always had been, going somewhere worth going if you stayed on it long enough. They reached Thornby before dark, barely, but before it, headman there was woman called Hilda, who said nothing about this because in Thornby nobody did. She counted out salt, checked every sack, paid remainder without argument, offered them barn for night, which they took gratefully. Edgar slept immediately. Way young people sleep, as though unconscious, is simply other room they step into without any effort. Wulfric sat at barn door long time, watching dark, listening to horse breathe and owl somewhere asking its one question over and over again. He thought about Sweyn standing in road with loosening hands. He thought about box of stones. He thought about his wife, whose laugh he could no longer hear clearly in his memory. Way old sounds fade, no matter how hard you hold on to them. He thought about Edgar, sharp-eyed and 12, and already learning which things are true and which things are useful, and how sometimes those are same thing and sometimes they are not, and how knowing difference is what road teaches you if you let it and pay attention and stay on it long enough to learn what it truly knows. In morning he decided he would tell Aldhelm about Sweyn, not because it would certainly help, not because he owed anything to man who stopped him on road with staff and 4 hungry cold followers, but because road required it, because 20 years taught him that small decent acts were the mortar between the stones of things, and without them everything eventually fell apart and became rubble, and nobody wanted to walk on rubble if they could walk on road. Instead he slept then, briefly and without dreaming, and in morning they went on north together, old man and boy, and horse and cart, and box of stones, from a Lincoln River, going somewhere, going always, somewhere road ahead pale, and long and cold, and entirely worth traveling, if you knew how to travel it well. England went on around them, indifferent and ancient, and somehow despite everything, still standing, still breathing, still sending its people, north and south on roads that had existed before any of them were born and would exist long after all of them were gone. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.